The empires of Ghana and Mali represent two of the most prominent civilizations in West African history, each renowned for their cultural and historical achievements. The Ghana Empire, flourishing from the 6th to the 13th centuries, was known as the Land of Gold, a testament to the immense wealth accumulated from its gold mines and control of Trans-Saharan trade routes. This not only brought prosperity to the region, but also facilitated a melting pot of cultures, as merchants from across Africa and the Mediterranean basin converged within its borders. Following the decline of the Ghana Empire, the region came under control of the Mali Empire. Mali is particularly remembered for its cultural zenith during Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca, which showcased its immense wealth and sparked global interest in the region. The Mali Empire was also a center for Islamic scholarship, particularly in the city of Timbuktu, which housed the Sankara University. Here, scholars, poets, and artisans thrived, and an impressive tradition of manuscript production was established, contributing to a rich literary and artistic legacy. Ghana and Mali made enduring contributions to West Africa's cultural, economic, and political development, with each empire leaving a distinct legacy of wealth, trade, governance, and cultural achievements that continue to shape the modern understanding of West Africa's historical significance. The founders of Ghana and Mali were the Mande peoples, who emerged from the Saharan pastoral culture which originated in the Central Sahara. During this era, the Sahara was a green paradise with flourishing ecosystems, lakes, rivers, exotic animals, as well as various cultures and peoples. However, because of increasing aridification, these people migrated to the Sahel region, and by the late 23rd century BC, complex societies began developing, such as the Tichitt-Walata culture in southern Mauritania and Mali. The Tichitt culture consisted of about 500 settlements, spread over 77,000 square miles. Tichitt was characterized by pearl millet farming, pastoralism, rock art, ceramics, funerary tombs, elaborate stone tools, and in its late period, metallurgy. Sometime in the middle of the first millennium BC, the Tichitt culture went into decline. It has been theorized that ancient Berbers displaced the original inhabitants in various conflicts, possibly beginning as early as 600 BC. This caused various waves of migrations to the Middle Niger, which gave rise to new cultures and civilizations. The following 300 years saw the emergence of the first cities in the Middle Niger, such as Djenné, which was established in 250 BC, and quickly became a hub of regional trade. In antiquity, West Africa was also explored by the Carthaginians and Romans. The Carthaginian expedition to the region occurred in the 6th or 5th centuries BC under Hanno the Navigator. The goal of this expedition was to establish colonies and new trade networks. The Carthaginians tell us that they trade with a race of men who live in a part of Libya beyond the Pillars of Heracles. On reaching this country, they unload their goods, arrange them tidily along the beach, and then, returning to their boats, raise a smoke. Seeing the smoke, the natives come down to the beach, place on the ground a certain quantity of gold in exchange for the goods, and go off again to a distance. The Carthaginians then come ashore and take a look at the gold, and if they think it presents a fair price for their wares, they collect it and go away. If, on the other hand, it seems too little, they go back aboard and wait, and the natives come and add to the gold until they are satisfied. There is perfect honesty on both sides. The Carthaginians never touch the gold until it equals in value what they have offered for sale, and the natives never touch the goods until the gold has been taken away. The Romans first explored the region in 19 BC. After conquering Fezzan in Libya, the general Lucius Cornelius Balbus sent a small group of legionaries on camelback to cross the Saharan desert and explore the lands to the south. After crossing the Hoggar Mountains, the expedition reached the Niger River, which was believed to be a western extension of the Nile. The second expedition was led by the Roman consul Suetonius Paulinus in 41 AD. After quelling a rebellion in Mauritania, he explored the land south of the Atlas Mountains and sent legionaries to explore the northern Senegal River. While these explorations seem to have made no significant impact on the region, they nonetheless provide valuable insights into the historical interactions and cultural exchanges between different civilizations during that era. Beginning in the 3rd century AD, Berber traders began to expand trade networks across the Sahara. This caused the Soninke people to move on from smaller settlements to more complex and organized urban centers. Cities were usually constructed on important roads, and eventually various city-states began to compete for local resources and important trade centers. In the 4th century AD, during a time of turmoil, a skilled warrior and charismatic leader, Dinga Chiche, unified the Soninke tribes and chose the site of Kumbi, located at the heart of trade networks, to build his capital, laying the foundations of the Ghana Empire. He is also credited with bringing stability to the region by implementing governing institutions that help maintain order and justice, and by defending the empire's borders. According to legend, Dinga Chiche, who was often portrayed as a semi-divine king, made a pact with a snake named Bida. The story goes that Bida would guarantee the prosperity and abundance of gold in the empire in exchange for the annual sacrifice of a virgin. Over the following centuries, Dinga Chiche's successors conquered and subdued various kingdoms due to Ghana's superior iron weaponry and early use of cavalry in West Africa. By the 8th century, the Ghana Empire reached the Senegal River in the west and controlled 3 major gold mines. During this era, Kaya Magan, the founder of the Sisha-Tunkara dynasty, rose to prominence, steering the empire into its golden age. Concurrently, the Arab conquest of North Africa saw a significant increase in trade. This mainly included the export of gold, ivory, and slaves. And in return, Ghana received salt, cloths, metal goods, luxury items, and horses. Slaves were usually prisoners of war or were captured in raids. Many were kept by the state or sold within the empire. Slaves sold to the Umayyad Caliphate were subjected to domestic servitude, agricultural labor, military service, and women were often taken as concubines by rulers. However, due to the Islamic legal system, slaves could earn freedom by contract or in some cases negotiation. The rulers of Ghana had tight control over gold mining and established royal monopolies. One of their most well-known policies was that all gold nuggets were considered property of the king. However, gold dust could be exported and traded. In all of the kingdoms under the authority of the King of Ghana, gold is visible from the ground, and the people extract it and make it into pieces like bricks. The plentiful amount of gold in Ghana led to a flourishing of goldsmithing and artistic expression. Gold was used to create elaborate jewelry, ornaments, and various artifacts. According to Arab accounts between the 8th and 11th centuries, Ghana was the wealthiest nation in the world, its king possessing an extensive treasury filled with massive gold nuggets, which were collected by his predecessors. The king sits with an audience or hears grievances against officials in a domed pavilion around which stand 10 horses covered with gold-embroidered materials. Behind the king stand 10 pages holding shields and swords decorated with gold. And on his right are the sons of the vassal kings of his country wearing splendid garments and their hair plaited with gold. The governor of the city sits on the ground before the king, and around him are ministers seated likewise. At the door of the pavilion are dogs of excellent pedigree, who hardly ever leave the place where the king is, guarding him. Round their necks they wear collars of gold and silver, studded with several balls of the same metals. When the people who profess the same religion as the king approach him, they fall on their knees and sprinkle dust on their heads, for this is their way of greeting him. As for the Muslims, they greet him only by clapping their hands. Kumbi Saleh was the largest city in the western Sudan. According to medieval sources, it had a population of between 30 and 50,000. However, archaeologists estimate that the site likely had closer to 70,000 inhabitants. Although the city was known as Kumbi or Ghana to foreigners, the natives called it Ouagadougou. The city of Ghana consists of 2 towns situated on a plain. One of these towns, which is inhabited by Muslims, is large and possesses 12 mosques, in one of which they assemble for the Friday prayer. There are salaried imams and muezzins as well as jurists and scholars. The king's town is 6 miles distant from this one and bears the name of Al-Ghaba. Between these 2 towns there are continuous habitations. The houses of the inhabitants are of stone and acacia wood. The king has a palace and several domed dwellings, all surrounded with an enclosure like a city wall. In the king's town, and not far from his court of justice, is a mosque where the Muslims who arrive at his court pray. Around the king's town are domed buildings and groves and thickets where the sorcerers of these people, men in charge of the religious cult, live. In them, too, are their idols and the tombs of their kings. These woods are guarded, and no one may enter them and know what is there. In them also are the king's prisons. If somebody is imprisoned there, no news of him is ever heard. Their religion is paganism and the worship of idols. When their king dies, they construct over the place where his tomb will be an enormous dome of sage wood. Then they bring him on a bed covered with a few carpets and cushions and place him beside the dome. At his side they place his ornaments, his weapons, and the vessels from which he used to eat and drink, filled with various kinds of food and beverages. They place there, too, the men who used to serve his meals. They close the door of the dome and cover it with mats and furnishings. Then the people assemble, who heap earth upon it until it becomes like a big hillock, and dig a ditch around it until the mound can be reached at only one place. They make sacrifices to their dead and make offerings of intoxicating drinks. The Ghana army was extremely well organized and, according to al-Bakri, could field 200,000 men, including 40,000 archers. The army also consisted of mercenaries from various places and cavalry, which worked in unison with infantry units. In the late Umayyad period, raiding parties were sent to Ghana to seize the empire's gold reserves, but this expedition was thwarted, and the Arab soldiers captured, known as Hunayhin, never returned home. They now follow the religion of the people of Ghana, but they do not take wives from among the Sudan, nor do they give their daughters in marriage to them. Raids from the north seem to have been a common issue Ghana rulers faced. To counter these attacks, the empire maintained patrols of vulnerable borders and likely reserved heavy cavalry response units. The king, a symbol of the state's power and unity, typically led the army during times of war or major military campaigns. At its peak in the 10th and 11th centuries, the Ghana Empire reached the Atlantic Ocean in the west and captured important trade routes in the north, such as Ouagadougou and Walata. This cemented Ghana as the dominant regional power and led to an increase in revenue, as these towns were key points in the Trans-Saharan trade. In the 1050s, the Almoravid dynasty rose to dominate the western Maghreb. The Almoravids were a tribal coalition, which initially came together as a religious movement, which was influenced by Islamic reformist teachings. The foremost tribes in the coalition were the Lamtuna, Gudala, and Lamta. As soon as they rose to power, the Almoravids attempted to convert the Ghana king Bassi to Islam, but after refusing, the two powers became rivals. Allying with the Kingdom of Tekrur, which converted to Islam in the 1030s and was formerly a vassal of Ghana, the Almoravids captured Ouagadougou in 1054 and sacked the city, because its inhabitants, who were mostly Sanhaja Berbers, recognized Bassi as their sovereign. The final Ghana king during this period was named Tunka Manin, who was described as a virtuous king who loved his people and treated Muslims well. But because he also refused to convert to Islam, The Almoravids under Abu Bakr ibn Umar declared a holy war against Ghana and invaded with an army of 30,000 cavalry, along with their Tekrur allies. While this war is poorly documented, it is known that it was protracted and involved several battles. However, the war ultimately ended in 1076 after the capture and sacking of Kumbhi-Saleh, which forced Ghana to become an Almoravid vassal. Abu Bakr also campaigned as far as Gao and Mali. The outcome of these campaigns was the widespread adoption of Islam among many of the elite classes in the western Sudan. The Almoravids also launched an invasion into Spain, and in October of 1086, they defeated the Christian coalition of Leon, Castile, and Aragon at the Battle of Sagrajas. This established the Almoravids as a major military power in Al-Andalus, which had been under increasing pressure from the Christian Reconquista. In 1087, following the death of Abu Bakr, who was killed by a poison arrow, Ghana regained its independence. However, it was significantly weakened as various vassal states broke from the empire and it lost control over the Trans-Saharan trade. The new dynamic of Islam in the region also played a role in weakening Ghana both socially and politically. In the late 12th century, the Soso people, who were initially under Ghana's influence, capitalized on the fragmentation of the empire and conquered the rump state of Diarra. And in 1203, under the leadership of the tyrant king Sumanguru Kante, the Soso subjugated Ghana and brutally sacked Kumbhi-Saleh. Sumanguru Kante also conquered parts of Mali, including Niani, and frequently launched slave raids against smaller kingdoms. This caused various kingdoms to unite under Sunjata Keita, often called the Lion King. According to oral tradition, Sunjata was born to King Nari Magan Konate and his second wife Sogolon, who was known for her unconventional appearance. Before his birth, Sunjata was foretold to become a renowned and mighty ruler. Sunjata spent his childhood confined to his mother's house, as he had a disability and was unable to walk. This led to mockery and disdain within the royal court. For 7 years, Sunjata remained in this condition, but one day after his mother was berated for his sake, Sunjata resolved to stand and walk. With great effort and determination, he managed to rise to his feet, using an iron staff for support. This moment marked a significant turning point in his life. Following his father's death in around 1224, his stepmother Sasuma Barete and his half-brother Dankarantuman took the throne and began persecuting him, forcing the young prince, his family, and some loyal followers to flee Mali and seek asylum in various neighboring kingdoms. This period was crucial for Sunjata's development as it allowed him to grow strong, gain allies, and prepare for his eventual return. Several years later, Sunjata had gathered a following of warriors and formed a coalition of local rulers who were threatened by Soso expansion, which enhanced his status and leadership. In 1235, Sunjata, who was about 18 years old, mobilized his forces and confronted Sumanguru at the Battle of Karinia. The battle led to the destruction of the Soso army, the razing of the Soso capital, and the capture of territories formerly under the empire's dominion. Sumanguru's fate is obscure, but he is believed to have either died in the battle or lived the rest of his life in exile. Sunjata's victory also marked the establishment of the Mali Empire, with Niani designated as its capital. Following his victory, Sunjata unified Mali and was proclaimed Mansa, or King of Kings. Sunjata is also credited with introducing the Mande Charter, a constitution that established laws and governance principles for the empire. He also established the Great Gabara, a diverse advisory council of nobles, elders, and regional leaders, which was a testament to his commitment to inclusive governance. This assembly played a crucial role in advising the Mansa on a range of state affairs, from legislative decisions to strategic military planning. Though Sunjata held ultimate decision-making power, the Gabara's presence introduced a unique balance, providing varied perspectives and serving as a moderating influence on the Mansa's authority. This innovative approach to governance under Sunjata's rule skillfully combined elements of autocracy with inclusive consultation. highlighting his remarkable ability to command respect and unify disparate groups within the vast Mali Empire. Sunjata's enduring legacy is thus characterized not just by his powerful reign but also by his foresight in creating a harmonious and stable governance structure, which played a pivotal role in the empire's historical prominence. According to later Arab and Berber accounts, Sunjata Keita was a Muslim and went on a Hajj, but this is debated as the prevailing view is that he was an animist. In his latter reign, his army conquered the kingdom of Jolof, thereby expanding the empire's borders to reach the Atlantic Ocean. Sunjata Keita was succeeded by his son Mansa Wali in 1255, who was described by Ibn Khaldun as one of Mali's greatest rulers. Though not much is known about this figure, he apparently captured Walata. His brother Wati ruled after him, and then a third brother, Khalifa. Khalifa was insane and devoted to archery and used to shoot arrows at his people and kill them wantonly, so they rose against him and killed him. In the late 13th century, the Mali Empire experienced a period marked by complex internal dynamics, involving palace intrigues and a power struggle between the Gabara and the Donson Tun, or the hunter guilds. This period was characterized by challenges to centralized authority and attempts by various factions to assert influence over the empire's governance. Mansa Sakura, a key figure during this time, emerged amid these tensions as a usurper. His rule, though initially marked by internal strife, eventually led to a degree of consolidation within the empire. He was assassinated by a grandson of Sunjata Keita. The next noteworthy Mali ruler was Mansa Muhammad, who was renowned for attempting to cross the Atlantic Ocean 180 years before Columbus. According to an account recorded by Al-Umari, he set out on 2,000 ships, half of them filled with years of provisions and gold. The expedition never returned. While historians are skeptical whether this expedition arrived in the Americas, Columbus's travel logs recorded that the native inhabitants of Hispaniola claimed that from the south and the southeast had come black people whose spears were made of a metal called guanin, from which it was found that of 32 parts, 18 were gold, 6 were silver, and 8 copper. Mansa Musa ascended to the throne of Mali in 1312, embarking on a reign that would eventually earn him and his empire global fame, especially for his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. As a devout Muslim adhering to the Malikite school of thought, Mansa Musa's rule was marked by his religious devotion and the expansion of his empire, which included the conquest of the Songhai prior to his pilgrimage. The Tarikh al-Fattash, a key historical source, notes a tragic incident in Mansa Musa's life: the accidental killing of his mother, Kankan. This event profoundly impacted him, leading to a heightened sense of charity and a quest for redemption. His pilgrimage to Mecca was not only an expression of his Islamic faith but also a journey in seeking pardon for this incident. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca was remarkable in its scale and grandeur, featuring a massive caravan that underscored the Mali Empire's wealth and power. This impressive procession included 8,000 soldiers, a retinue of 9,000 to 14,000 slaves, and a multitude of mules laden with gold. Along with royal attendants, the total number of people in the caravan reached approximately 60,000. This extraordinary display of resources and manpower not only highlighted the immense riches of Mansa Musa, but also served as a symbol of Mali's formidable presence in the medieval world. Mansa Musa arrived in Egypt in 1324 with magnificent gifts and much gold. The Sultan al-Malik al-Nasir Muhammad B. Kalwun sent the host to receive him, and Musa rode to the citadel on the day of his official reception. He refused to kiss the ground and said to the interpreter, "I am a man of the Malakite school and do not prostrate myself before any but Allah." So the Sultan excused him and drew near to him and honored him. The members of his entourage proceeded to buy Turkish and Ethiopian slave girls, singing girls, and garments, so that the rate of the gold dinar fell by 6 dirhams. Mansa Musa also caused inflation by distributing gold to the poor. Ultimately, the local economies of the regions he passed through, including Mecca, Medina, and Cairo, took several years to recover. After completing the Hajj in Mecca, Mansa Musa paid 40 descendants of the Prophet Muhammad to come back to Mali with him, for spiritual prosperity of the empire. He also brought back several skilled professionals and scholars to enrich his empire, culturally and intellectually. This included architects, engineers, artisans, craftsmen, famous poets, administrators, and bureaucrats. This journey ultimately elevated Mansa Musa to a status of world renown, marking him as one of the most significant figures in the history of the Islamic world. Upon his return to West Africa, he peacefully annexed Timbuktu and constructed both a royal palace and a mosque there. The city became renowned as a center of learning, attracting scholars, students, and intellectuals from across the Islamic world. It was particularly known for its study of Islam, but also for a wide range of other subjects, including mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and law. The city was home to numerous libraries, which held thousands of manuscripts. The University of Sankore was a key institution in Timbuktu. Flourishing under Mansa Musa's patronage, it became one of the leading centers of learning in the Muslim world, comparable to the famous universities in the Middle East and Europe. One of the most notable aspects of Mansa Musa's rule was his practice of emancipating a slave every day. This gesture was not only a demonstration of his personal beliefs in justice and mercy, but also a reflection of his adherence to certain Islamic principles. In Islamic tradition, freeing slaves is regarded as a highly admirable act. This practice would have had significant social implications. Furthermore, this act of daily emancipation highlights Mansa Musa's approach to governance, where benevolence and adherence to moral and ethical principles played a crucial role. It contrasts with the typical perception of medieval rulers, especially in the context of an empire as wealthy and powerful as Mali, where rulers might have otherwise been expected to focus solely on expansion and wealth accumulation. Mansa Musa's commitment to freeing slaves is a part of his legacy that underscores his character as a ruler who valued equity and the welfare of his people. Mansa Musa ruled at the peak of the Mali Empire, which was 1.2 million square kilometers and had an army of 90,000 foot soldiers and archers as well as 10,000 horsemen. Mansa Musa died in 1337 after ruling for 25 years. His successors faced challenges in maintaining unity and strength, as they lacked his skill in governance, leading to a gradual weakening of central control. This was intensified by internal divisions and the rise of powerful provincial rulers. The empire began to fragment as regions and leaders that were once under Mali's control asserted their independence. The rise of rival states, particularly the Songhai Empire under leaders like Soni Ali and Askia Muhammad, further diminished Mali's dominance in the region. Despite political decline, the cultural and scholarly impact of Mansa Musa's reign continued to be felt. Timbuktu remained an important center of Islamic learning and culture. The manuscripts and architectural achievements from this era continued to be revered and studied. The decline of the Mali Empire also brought changes in trade routes and economic power dynamics in West Africa. The focus shifted to other rising powers and new trade routes affecting the empire's economic prosperity. The empires of Ghana and Mali stand as monumental chapters in the history of West Africa, each representing a pinnacle of cultural, economic, and political achievement in their respective eras. Both empires played pivotal roles in shaping the history of the region, influencing trade networks, cultural practices, and establishing benchmarks of unprecedented wealth and gold production. Their legacies, rich in tradition and achievement, continue to be celebrated as testaments to the complex and sophisticated societies that once thrived in West Africa.